All right, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I am Morgan, Product Education Manager here at Jotform. Today we are going to go ahead and get us started. I got a little bit of an echo. Hold on one second here. Thanks for joining me today. There we go. Should be good. Okay, I think we're good now. Again, thanks for joining me today. I'm Morgan. I'm the Product Education Manager here at Jotform. And today we are kicking off our form builder, sorry. We are kicking off our Mastering Data Essentials series. So if you've attended webinars with us throughout this year, you might remember that we are taking some time this year to go back to basics. So we've recently surpassed over 25 million Jotform users, which means that we have tons of new people subscribing to Jotform every day, as well as a lot of you who are veteran users. And we're taking time this year to make sure that regardless of whether you've been a Jotform user for 10 minutes or 10, 15 years, you have everything you need to take full advantage of the platform. Earlier this year, we kicked this initiative off with our Form Builder Basics series. And then throughout the rest of this month, we are turning our attention to all things data in Jotform. We will be taking some time to talk about the variety of ways that you can access and use your form responses, as well as how to find the data behind how people are using your forms. We are kicking things off today with Jotform Tables. Tables is your one-stop shop for accessing all of your form data in a single place, organizing it, following it up, pulling it into a workflow. When you create a form with Jotform, table will get created automatically, and it collects all of your form responses into a single organized place. From tables, you can then download, analyze, search, filter, sort, whatever you need to do to learn from your responses and your data. And you can also take actions directly from tables as well. Most of today's session is going to be a demo. I'm about done here on the slides, so we're going to hop out there in just a moment. When I am done, we will have some time for questions as well. So if you have any questions as we go, please feel free to drop them into the Q&A there, and I'll do my best to get through some of them at the end of the session. Okay. All right, so starting the demo, I am here in my Jotform account. I'm logged into my account and I'm on my Forms landing page. This is the page that you wind up on when you log into Jotform. I'm going to be showing you the 3 different ways that you can get to tables. And in the intro just a moment ago, I mentioned that tables get created automatically when you create a form. So 2 of the ways, might make sense, you can access them through the form themselves. So 2 of those ways are through the form. The first of those is to look for the form here on the My Forms landing page. And you can see when I hover over or click on a form, I get the options of what I can do with that form. So when I click on it, I see some quick action buttons on the top. And then I also see these options over here on the right, including a More menu here. And to get into tables from here, you'll want to click on Submissions either here or at the top. And that will take you into your table for that form. If I go back to that same page, the second way that you can get into a table is to actually open up the form itself. So from here, we're going to click Edit Form to pull this up in the Form Builder. And when you are in the Form Builder or you're in any specific form or table or whatever within Jotform, there will be a navigation menu right here on the left next to the Jotform logo that will allow you to toggle among the other Jotform products and tools for that form specifically. So if I wanted to see what the PDF of this data would look like, I can switch to the PDF for this data. I could also switch to tables in the same way, so we can see that here. So here we go. We're right back where we were in the first way to get here. Here we are back at that table. We are going to hang out here for a little bit, and then I'll have the third example, the third way to get in just a little while. So we'll come back to that. But for now, I want to focus on tables, navigation, and orientation, and then what you can do with tables to make it part of a workflow rather than just a place that's collecting data. And I'm actually going to go ahead and turn off my video so it's not in the way of anything at this point. And give me just one moment to clear my throat and take a sip of water as well. Okay. All right, here we are. So now we're in the table. Again, want to talk first about tables navigation and orient you to everything that you see here. So at the top of the page here in the white header bar, you'll see in the center here, there is a drop-down menu next to the title where you can rename the table, you can add a description, a couple of other different options, and you can also view revision history. So if you have this data shared with somebody and you're not quite sure, you want to keep track of changes that are made over time, you could come here and see revision history, click on one of the previous iterations of this table. And if needed, you can restore this up here on the right with the green restore button. If you just wanted to look at it, you can also just hit that X to close it back and you'll be brought back to the current view. Also here at the top is the share button. So if you do need to share your data with somebody else that you might be collaborating with, you have that option right here. So you can share by link, by email, or you can embed, and you have share settings as well. So you can determine what sort of access people have to the table. So whether that's a private table or a public table or something that goes to your company only, sorry, close that by accident, and what kind of access people will have. So whether or not they can actually adjust data or just view data or view data and comment. So you have those options there. So that's where you would go to share your table out. Next, just going down the table from top to bottom, we have the tabs. By default, when your table is created, you'll only see a single tab, which like what we're looking at here. So let's pretend that those in the middle don't exist for the time being. So you have a single tab and then you'll have an add tab button as well, where you can add other tabs. So we'll be coming back to that a little bit later. Next to the title of the tab, you'll see a vertical ellipses menu that's settings for that tab. So you can lock all data so nobody can make any edits to it. You can view the form from here or send the form out from here. You can duplicate this data set. You can change the view, and I'll be showing you a few other views in a little bit here. Add a description, download the full set of data, archive or trash entries. Great. So that's that. And then within the tab, next down here, you'll see on the left, search and filter options, and on the right, download. So you can download all of your data from here. You can view, assign, or edit the form from here. And you can also choose which columns you'll show in the table here. So if you don't need to see any of this data, you can hide columns at any time. The search and filter options allow you to look at specific subsets of data based on search or filter criteria. So this is a job application form. And actually, let me go ahead and pull the form up itself as well so we can take a look at that. So we'll have both side by side. Here we go. Job application. You can see pretty straightforward job application, just name, email, phone, LinkedIn, etc. So here back on the form, job application, if I wanted, for example, to see all people whose name includes applicants, which there are a lot because this is all fake data, I can use the search there to come up with those search terms and just view those applicants. I can hit the X to close that out. And similarly with filter, I can view, again, a certain subset of data, either by whether the submission is read or starred or unstarred, or within a certain time frame, or within certain filter criteria based on the fields themselves. So for example, in this job application, maybe I just want to see those folks who are applying to be the marketing specialist. I can select choose fields. I can select position applied, includes marketing specialist, apply the filter. And now I'm just seeing those folks who have applied for the marketing specialist position. I can even create a new tab with this view. So if this is something I know that I need to come back to regularly, maybe I want to be sharing this with the marketing hiring manager, I can create a new tab. We'll call this marketing. Hit create tab. And now we have that tab with just that filter applied. So I can come back to my original table here, the table with all the data, and I can remove that filter by hitting the X. And now I have all my data here and can easily come back to that marketing tab for just that subset of the data. Okay. So far we talked about overall settings for the tab and the table as a whole. So next we're going to look at columns as well. So I showed you the job application. Again, you can see name, email, phone, LinkedIn, position applied. How did you hear about us? And you'll see those same columns in that same order reflected in the table. So name, email, phone, LinkedIn, position applied, how did you hear about us, etc. You'll also see approval status and submission date. So that will be included. Submission date is included for all submissions. And then if you have an approval workflow built into your form, you'll also see approval status here. Similarly, if you're using Jotform Sign, you'll see sign data included in here as well. So that's a really useful way to know exactly what's going on with your form, with your signed document at any given time. I mentioned that the columns are appear in the same order as the form. So the columns appear in the order in which you set up your form. If you make changes over time, the columns will be added to the end of the table. So you may need to rearrange. To rearrange, all you need to do is drag and drop. So let's say, for example, it's most important for me to see the position applied next to the person's name. So I'm just going to drag and drop position applied over. In addition to reorganizing with the columns here, you have a drop-down arrow right next to the column where you can see actions that you can take with the column. So for each column, you can sort the entire data set in ascending or descending order. You can download just that column. For some columns like this one where we have just a couple of different responses available, you can group the table by that column. So we would see the marketing specialist people together, the product lead people together, etc. You can also rename, freeze, typical things that you might expect, insert a column to the left or the right. Two things I want to point out here because I think they're really handy, like at a glance, ways to interact with your data are the option to summarize with chart. So you can click that for any column and see a very quick visual summary of that column. You can change the view. So if we want to see a donut or a pie chart, for example, you have a data table at the bottom as well. So again, quick visual, you can download this too. Real world example, I have used this particular feature when trying to plan a get together with a large group of friends and giving them a certain number of dates to choose from to be able to easily see which day the most people can go to and select that day for a get together. So there are a number of different ways that this can be really valuable. The other thing I wanted to point out here is that you can add summary information for the column to the very bottom of the column. So hopefully you can see that down here, right here, it says empty 39. So for that, you can choose whether you want to see empty, filled, unique, percent empty, percent filled for that particular column. This might be really useful for any number of reasons, but one example might be if you have a long form that you find out that people tend to submit without complete data, you can use this to be able to very easily see what fields are getting skipped most often. And maybe you can adjust that field accordingly, move it to a different spot in the form, or maybe you don't even need that field and you can just remove it and make things easier for everybody. So again, a quick visual way to get some information from your data here. Okay, so we've talked about columns. Also here, the rows represent one response to your form. So the rows have some settings as well. You can select as many rows as you want over here. So when you do that, you can see that you can download just the set that you're selecting. You can select or deselect all above that, and you can star responses as well. So for example, in this case, maybe I want to star the people that we think are good candidates that we want to push to the interview rounds so that when we're ready to start interviews, we can easily come back to these people. And if you remember, there is the option to filter based on starred responses as well. In addition to that, there is another vertical ellipses next to the row where, again, you can view the entry in detail. This is a nice way to focus on a particular entry. You see all of the information here, including if there's an approval flow added. Let's pull up one that does have the approval flow in place. You'll see any approval steps taken at the bottom as well. In addition to that, you can add rows above or below. You can download just this row. You can archive or delete this row. If you get a duplicate submission and you don't want that, you can delete it easily. Another neat feature is that you can reply or forward a response directly from here. So let's say you receive a job application, but for some reason the resume didn't come through properly. You can easily hit that reply button, send that directly to the person's email and say, hey, I got your application, but the resume didn't come through. Can you please resubmit the resume? Or another way that you could interact with a hiring manager here might be to forward candidates to the hiring manager. So you can hit that forward. Again, the whole submission is included here. So they'll have all of the data. You might want to say something like, maybe your HR, you say something like, hey, I'm going to move this person to the interview rounds. They seem like a solid candidate. Please let me know if you have any objections or any specific questions you want me to ask them. And I can say who that's going to right here on the to box. Okay, so thus far we have focused on what the table looks like when it's first created. I know that this is pretty introductory for some of you, hopefully not for all of you. Hopefully this is good information for a good number of you there. I'm just looking at questions really quick. How can you mark a response read or unread? You do have that option right here. So you can see mark as unread here. When a response is unread, it appears a little bit gray. So that's an unread response. You can do that for however many entries you need if you want to make sure that you come back to them later. Or if you're sharing this and you want somebody else to review those entries, you have that option. And then similarly, if something is unread, you can mark it as read. So then it turns white like the rest of them here. Okay. All right. So again, that's what the table looks like as it's created. So again, we're just focusing on this first table here. It's pulling in all of the data from the form. Each column is a form field. Each row is a different response. Now, what if you want to build on this over time? And as I mentioned in the intro, incorporate it as part of an overall workflow rather than just a place that's collecting data. You do have the option to add both rows and columns. So here at the very bottom, if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see add here, and you can always add in a submission and manually enter that. One use case I use really often here is if you're doing a fundraising drive, nonprofits out there, I know we have a lot of nonprofit users. Maybe the majority of people are using your form to donate, but you're getting some people call in with credit cards and some people send in checks. You want to use tables as your complete database of all of the donations, so you can follow up with people from there. So you have the full amounts donated included in there. You can then manually enter anybody that's not coming in through the form. Similarly, if you want to add columns for any reason, you have that option as well. So you want to scroll all the way to the right of your table and look for the add button here. In this case, the form itself goes through cover letter. That's the last field on the form. We can look at that right here. So you can see cover letter right here is the last field after resume. And I've gone ahead and added in some fields that help me in the process of hiring people, of interviewing people, of recommending people, etc. I have added in a date column where I can include interview date for those people we're going to interview. I've also included a notes column if we want to make notes about any candidates. And I've included 2 action buttons. So action buttons allow you to create an action up front that you then just need to push a button here from tables to be able to complete that action. So if you're in tables, there's no need for you to have to dig up an email address or copy data over into another platform, etc. To add any of those and a lot more, you can go to add here and click that. And you'll see 4 tabs of options. First, you have basic options. Those, for the most part, mimic the fields you'll see in the form. And I should mention here that anything you add to the table is not going to appear in your form. So it's not like your candidates would have any access to the date that they're going to be interviewed or whether or not they're being interviewed. So here I've used the date and time for that interview field. I've used short text for the notes column. You also have fields formatted for email address, phone number, multiple choice, etc. Pretty straightforward options there. Next, you have formula options, and then I'm also going to mention connection options here because several of the formulas, or two of the formulas, are based on connected data. I know that there were a number of people who had asked about connecting data in registration questions. We're not going to cover that in depth here, but I do have some resources I can point you to at the end. If you want to have this table interact with another table, whether it's to look up data in another table, so you can pull in data from that table, or to create a calculation with that table, you'll first need to connect to that table. So you can come here to connection and connect to the form or table. Either way will get you to the same set of data. When you click that, you'll hit next and then you name the column, just call this test. And then you're going to select where you want that data to come from. So ideally, this is an affiliated related form or table. Okay. Yeah, you can connect either to a form or table. From there, again, the same data set would come in. And from there, you can use lookup or rollup to interact, to connect this table with that other table. You can also use counter here to count up specific column selections. I believe I saw a question about that right now. I do see a couple of questions about recording. Yes, we are recording and we will share this as well for those of you who are asking that. I believe somebody's asking about is there a way to tabulate responses? So yeah, you can use counter. If you have fields where there are countable options, you can use counter here. And then also, in addition to that, there is advanced formula as well for more advanced options. Again, I'm not going to get into a ton of detail on this, but you can do a lot with formulas here. When you go to add a formula, you'll see all of your columns and then all of the functions. They're color-coded by type of function. So for example, if you wanted to concatenate like the person's name with their phone number for whatever reason, you can do that. Or if you have a quiz and you want to add up quiz values, you have an addition option, average things, etc. All of those are in here. Again, this can get really granular. It can get really, really detailed. And there are a lot of options here. So I'm not going to get into more detail than that currently, but I will share some resources at the end for more. In addition to that, if you ever have any questions, you can hit up our support team. It's just jotform.com/contact, and you can easily get in touch with them as well. Okay, last thing I wanted to cover in the ad section are those action buttons. So as I mentioned, with action buttons, you'll set up an action in advance. And then if you need to perform that action, all you need to do is hit a button. Another real world example here, you might remember that we use Jotform for our webinar registrations. And so you might have filled that out and entered in a question that you had. So occasionally the questions that we get there are more relevant to our support team. They're individual to an account, or somebody's having trouble with something. I have often created an action button here with the send email option that I have put in place, so that if I come across questions like that should go to support, I can set that up to go to our support team, and then any of those I come across, I can just hit that message and that email will go off to support with the entire contents of the submission here as well. You also have options to send files to external services in a couple of different ways, send attachments, send PDFs, request that users update their submissions. So if you commonly get a certain set of data missing, you can add that and easily go back to people to ask them to update their submission. You can send a form with pre-populated answers. So in this case, let's say we also want to connect our offer letter form that's also in Jotform. And in the offer letter, we include the person's name, email, phone number. We can pull that data in from this table and send them the offer letter with that data pre-populated, and that would be done with the send form option. In this case, I have included send email here. So another way to interact with a hiring manager in this case might be to forward them an email for good candidates. So what I've done here is set that up. And you can see settings for any action buttons and adjust those settings by going to that drop-down menu for the column and looking for the edit action button option. And there you'll see what you have set up already, and you can edit it as needed. So if you're sending an email, this would be a notification email. That's something that's outgoing. Autoresponder is to the person who submitted the response. I can hit edit here. By default, that will include the full contents of the submission. It will also be names like form name and the person's name, something like that. You can edit any of this here. You can include a message to the hiring manager like, hi, I think this person's a good candidate. Please let me know if you have any concerns before we interview them. And then in recipients, you can choose where that's going. So again, when you are ready to interview people, you just hit that send email, that goes to the hiring manager, and you're ready to go. Okay, so we've looked at adding in columns and rows. The last thing I want to talk about is adding in these additional tabs here. You can add in additional tabs to view this data in a different way, or to add tabs to view other data. You'll do that by looking for the add tab option here. You'll see your options there. So we have calendar, cards, uploads, and reports. I have created a calendar view here that is giving me a view of all of the people that we want to interview. So we're not seeing any data in there currently, but this could be a based on that interview date field where we would see all the people we're interviewing in this calendar view. I've created a card view here, and I actually think that this is a really nice use case for the card view. So you can see it's the same data, but it's just laid out completely differently. And there are many cases where it would make sense to view your data in this way, like a job application. You can even use a card view where the download of the resume that they've uploaded is right at the top, so you can easily find that and access it along with any information they've shared. You can interact with this data in the same exact way. It's just a completely different view of it. I've also created a report here of this data. This took literally less than 30 seconds. Our last webinar in this series is going to be focused on reports. So this has created a visual representation of all of the data in the table. I can iterate on it. I can edit it from here as needed, change the look and feel. But from here, I can download it, share it, etc. As I mentioned, you can also pull in other tables. So here we have a completely unrelated table. For the most part, if you're pulling in another table, it will probably be something relevant, but this happened to be a table that I had with data easily accessible, and another real world example. One way that we use Jotform here at Jotform is that I recently created this form so that we could track places we want to check out for happy hours. All of the options that you see here are submissions that my colleagues have made. And then I've gone ahead and used that add row option at the bottom to backfill the places we've been previously. So ideally, I'll fill that out at some point. Haven't gotten there yet, but ultimately, we can use this as a way not just to keep track of different places we want to try, but also look at what we thought about them, give them a vibes check rating, what day did we go, etc. So completely unrelated table, but I thought it was a nice example of another option and why you might want to add rows. And also wanted to show this off just to show you that you can add additional tables. And for that, you would go to add tab and just hit table and select the additional table you'd like to add. Okay, that is everything I'm going to cover here. I did mention there is a third way that you can get to tables, and I'm going to show you that now before we wrap things up. To get back to my home, I'm going to click the Jotform logo here, a little shortcut for you all. Anywhere within the site, you hit that Jotform logo and you're back onto your My Forms page where you land when you log in. Somebody asking about reports. You said you were able to create reports in 30 seconds, but how did you do that? So very quickly, in that table, when you hit that add tab, there is a reports option. You want to hit that and you'll select your data source. And I will encourage you to come to the webinar at the end of this month, the last Thursday of this month, to learn more. I don't want to give anything else away, so a little bit of a stay tuned there. Okay, so third way to access tables, we are currently on the My Forms landing page. There are landing pages for all of your products and tools within Jotform. When you are on a landing page, the drop-down menu to get to other landing pages is right here. So from here, I can hit My Tables, and I go to the landing page for all of my tables. So we're seeing the tables that I have that are tied to the forms that I just showed you. So we have my contact form, my happy hour form, and my example job application, which is what we've been looking at. So if I hit view table from here, we will see that same exact example that we've been looking at. If I go back to the My Tables landing page, I can also create tables from here. So I mentioned in the intro that tables get created automatically when you create a form and they collect your data. But if you're looking for a project management or a database option, you can also create tables independently of forms, or you can create a table and then create a form based on that table. It really depends on what your workflow is, what you need to do, how your brain works, that sort of thing. So to create a new table, I'm going to hit create table, and then we have 3 options to get started here. If you have data that already exists in a CSV or XLSX format, you can import data. So that will turn your spreadsheet into a table where you can then interact with it in the same way, adding in additional columns where you can perform calculations, adding in additional rows, etc. So that is an option here. From here, you just select the file that you want to upload. You can also start from scratch. So for that, you will have an entirely blank table that you can edit in the same way we've just looked at. So we can add in rows, add in columns, add in whatever you need. So by default, you'll just see, name, email, notes. It's called new table here. I'm going to make this in caps just to show you. It's a little bit easier to find when we go back to the My Tables landing. So you can change any of this, adjust it in exactly the same way that we were just looking at. You can also lock data and share this in the same way as well. So this would be a great option if you do want to do some project management or database work independent of a form that you've created. When you create a table in this way, a form is not created automatically. So if I go back to my forms landing, you do not see a form affiliated with that. If we go back to tables, we will see that table added right here. If I open this again, you can create a form, so you can prompt the system to create a form. So if you want to sort of work the opposite way where you are creating the table, but you do want to use forms to collect data, you can prompt the system to create that. I mentioned that when you're within a specific example, whether it's a table, whether it's a specific form, whether it's a specific PDF, this drop-down menu helps you navigate to the other products for that specific form, table, whatever. If you go to the drop-down here and hit Form Builder, that will then create a form. So again, let's just call this test for easy reference. You can see that it mimics the table that we've created with name, email, and notes here. Now, if I go back to my Forms page, we will now see that test form added. Okay. Last way to get started is to use a template. We have over 300 different templates available. So this might be good if you want to focus on the data itself, in your experience of the data versus the form might be a better way to visualize what the user's experience would be. So here you can see templates, again, over 300. You can search, you can browse by category, sort by what's popular, what's most used. You have some other options to narrow things down here. When you see something that seems like it might work for you, you can hit preview to read more about it, to see what it looks like. You can even see a demo here, and to see similar templates if that's not quite right for you. If it is quite right, you can use template that will make a copy of it in your account. It will include dummy data, so you can play around with it, and then you can delete all this and start from scratch. So what we have here is an employee timesheet table that also includes an employee directory tab. This is a much better example of having a table that has another affiliated table with it. So here we have the employee directory with the status, type of employee, etc. And here we have the weekly timesheet table. So they're keeping track of all their time. So this is a great example. So for example, we can see here that Molly is on leave. Then we know if we go to the weekly timesheet table, we should not expect a timesheet from Molly. So you can see related data in this way. When you do use a table template like we're doing here, you will see affiliated forms cloned into your account. So once again, we will go back to my forms, and now you can see employee information form and simple timesheet form. You can click on those in the form builder to edit them in any way you need to, but these are the forms that feed those tables. All right, I think that's everything I wanted to cover. Let's go back to the slides for some resources, and I will close this out. I do see that there are a few more questions. I am going to try to get through whichever ones I can. There may be some that are more relevant for a support team. We'll come back to that in a second, but I will skim those in just a moment. Couple of different resources I've included here, and I also have a QR code or a link here to a feedback and resources app that I'll be using throughout this series to point you to relevant resources. I will also add the recording of this webinar to this app within the next few days. So you can either copy down this link here, or if you have a smartphone, you can open up your camera and scan the QR code here. Either of those will take you to the app. It's got a few more resources than what I've included here, as well as some overall resources, and then a feedback form if you have any feedback for me. In addition to that, here we have a help guide. So this includes a lot of different chapters about how to navigate tables. And then I've also included a link directly to our Introduction to Data Management Jotform Academy course. We launched Academy earlier this year, and the first 3 courses are our Foundations program. It's a very good introductory course to Jotform overall. The 3rd course of that is data management. So it goes into more depth than I have today. And we'll be covering some of the stuff that we'll be covering throughout this month, but some of it in a bit more detail and formatted a little bit differently as well. So if you would like more information about accessing and using data within Jotform, I would recommend checking that out as well. I believe this course is about an hour to take. So the entire Foundations program is about 3.5 hours. I do also, I'm just going to pull up that app really quick just so you can see. I included a few other resources there as well. I think I have it here somewhere. Okay, well, it looks like I accidentally, well, I mean, just, I guess I can click on that to pull it up. I will pull that up because I did include a few other resources here. Sorry about the delay. I accidentally closed it earlier. So we have general resources related to tables. This is the tables landing page if you just want more information. And then this is a nice blog that covers some of those more advanced features in more detail. So some of the things that I didn't get into. There's a link to Academy in general, as well as support. So again, some of your questions today might be better for support if they're very unique to your use case. I'm going to recommend that you get in touch with support, jotform.com/contact. If you're using the app, you can just click on this button right here to get into that. And if you would like to check out the other webinars in this series and haven't already registered for them, you can register with this link here. So next week, we'll be talking about inbox. The week after, we will be talking about digest emails and form analytics. Form analytics tells you more about where people are coming from and how they're using your form. And then the last week, we will cover those reports in more depth. All right, I'm going to open up questions and see what I can address in here. I know I got to a couple of you already. Summary column to show the average. Yes, you can do that. So again, let me pull up a table here. You might have asked this before I covered this, but just to reiterate, if you wanted to add a summary column to do an average or count things, summarize things, go to add, and you'll find that option in formulas here in advanced formulas. I saw somebody else asked about sharing. So okay, so somebody, before I get to sharing, somebody interested in the resources for rollups and lookups. So again, I would recommend that blog that I pointed to for that. And then also the help guides should cover some of that. If you are working with that and you have any specific questions, again, that would be a great question for support. They can help you figure all of that out. They usually respond pretty quickly. How soon will a Jotform table course be added to Jotform Academy? So there's a need for more detail on advanced features in Jotform tables. Sure, totally get that. So Jotform Academy is something that I am managing and working on whenever I can. We do have a new course ideally coming out a little bit later this year, and tables and advanced tables is on our list. You're welcome to, there is a feedback form with Academy where you're welcome to share your feedback and add that to the list so we know who's interested in what. But we do hope to add an advanced tables course in the future as well. Okay, now let me get to that sharing option. I left that person hanging. So the share option is over here. When you click that, you will see the option to share through links. So you can create the link, share by email, or you can embed a link to this. And then you'll want to make sure you look at the share settings so that you have clear control over how, what type of access people have. So whether it's read only, that means they can only view the data, whether they can view and add comments, or if they're a collaborator and you want them to be able to edit data as well, you can do that in here. And then you can also choose whether this is only available to invited people, whether it's available to anybody who has access, or whether it's just available within your organization. And then you have some limitations and things that you can limit here at the bottom as well. Let's see. Why would you use the autoresponder in tables versus what's in the form itself? That's a great question. It's really up to your individual workflows and what you think your users might benefit from. So the autoresponder is available in form. It's the same exact thing. In forms that would go out to everybody. If you don't, for whatever reason, want that to go out to everybody, that might be a reason to include an action button here. Then you can just choose to send the autoresponder maybe to anybody who's asking if you got the submission. It just really depends on your workflow, but it is the same thing you'd find in the form builder. Can we automatically send an email instead of having to hit send email to marketing anytime an applicant who selects marketing submits a response? Yeah, so that is also something that you can set up within the form itself. So you'll want to look for emails in the form builder. Again, this is the action buttons are great for people who are spending a lot of their time in tables. So if you are somebody who is really interacting with your data here in tables and you want the option of being able to use that, you have that option here. But yes, you can also set that up in forms as well. Let's see. When sending the pre-populated form through send form, is the data in the body of the email or is it sent with a link to the form? So what that would do is it would send the form with the data pre-populated in the form to the email that the person has on file here, and you can customize what the email says. So whatever email they've provided you from the onset in this job application example is where that email would go. And again, the offer letter, for example, would include whatever data you want to pull over. So you can pull over name, email, phone, et cetera, into the form itself. I think I do see a couple of other questions here that I do think yeah, so for the rest of you, I think I would recommend, again, getting in touch with support. I can see, a couple of people looking for some more resources. And again, support would be a good place to go for that. And I will absolutely, bring back to the team that we'd like to see more resources about tables, advanced features specifically as well. But yeah, I would recommend getting in touch with support just generally. Support has a quick line to our development team, and they can always keep track of that. So often support requests go directly to our development team so we can see who's looking for what. So I would recommend just logging that with them and seeing if there's anything else that they can point you to. When you lock or freeze a column, can people still submit responses to the form? Yes. So locking or freezing a column. Locking a column means that nobody accessing the table can edit the data. Freezing the column just holds it in place. So sort of like what you're seeing here with, you see approval status and submission date, regardless of where I'm scrolling. That does not in any way affect what people can do with their submissions. Can I send an email through the send email button without the form, but with a message and attachment? I believe so. I would send that question. I would go to support with that question. Just, I don't have that. I believe so, but I don't want to give you wrong information. So check in with support about that. Again, that's just jotform.com/contact, and they should get back to you pretty soon. Great. Okay. So I think that's everything. Again, if you have additional questions, I again recommend getting in touch with support. You're also welcome to email me. I'm Morgan@jotform.com, MORGAN@jotform. And if you have the time to check out that app, you can also submit your feedback here with the feedback button. So that goes directly to me. I have access to that. So if you have any feedback for me today or any additional webinars you'd like to see or other resources you'd like to see, please feel free to enter that there as well. Thank you all for attending. I hope I see you next week. Well, actually, that one of my colleagues will be doing next week's webinar, but I hope we see you back next week for our inbox session. And enjoy the rest of your week. I don't know if anybody else is having unseasonably warm, beautiful weather like we are here in San Francisco. If you are, I hope you get outside over the next few days